we are building a place that will allow people to come in and get their hands dirty, playing with anything that everything has that even in any absolutely possible way pertains to sustainability. We'll have a section dedicated to green building, a section dedicated to sustainable transportation, section dedicated to renewable energy. And these are just 3 areas we are planning to have for the opening day. And down the road, we will be adding additional sections. We are talking about food sustainability, and we are not looking to limit ourselves to any good idea that we end up running across. So this is a high-level view of the idea.
So you're creating can you tell us the name and where it is? And
that would only make sense. The name of the project is Greenspark, and it will be located in Vermont, in Waterbury, not too far away from Ben & Jerry ice cream. So two birds with one stone.
That's pretty far north, isn't it?
Well, it all depends on who you ask.
It's kind of close to Burlington.
South of Burlington.
Okay, but not like an hour south. How far up there is it?
So you take 89 south of Burlington, probably for 20 minutes, and yeah, so 25 minutes south of Burlington, southwest.
Okay,
southeast.
I have friends that live in Winooski.
Yep.
So I was actually just up there, like just a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's Paul said that you were like a computer guy, a tech guy in the past, and you got into this. I'm curious why that transition happened.
Well, let me get comfortable in this chair, and I'll tell you the whole story. Well, we were happily living in Brooklyn, New York. For a very long time. We've been there for 16 years, and somehow I can. Well, the extent of our dreams at that time was to purchase a condominium on Staten Island and just drive a good car. I don't know, to Killington to ski once a year, and that was the extent of our dreams. And then somehow 2 things happened. I had a job that made me work a lot of weekends. So I used to accumulate a lot of compensation days. And my wife was a high school teacher. And in New York, high schools celebrate every imaginable holiday. So every 2 months or so, she had a week off from school, and I accumulated enough days from work to go and take 1 week off. So for about 3 or 4 years in a row, we ended up traveling. That was amazing. So as a result, we ended up being able to see so much of the country, and not just US, but we were mainly focusing on the US at the time, that we felt inspired to learn more. And somewhere around this same period, we ran across the Mother Earth News publication, and we started thinking about green building and what's possible. And it was all such a new concept, having been in Brooklyn for most of our adult lives. So we ended up moving into our car, leaving our jobs behind, and I built a bed, and we put a solar panel on the top of the roof of the SUV for the refrigerator.
Is this a van or a SUV?
SUV. It's a Toyota 4Runner. So I took out the back seats, built the platform, and all of our stuff was under the platform, and it was actually pretty comfortable. We lived out of this car for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
And we zigzagged coast to coast from New York to California, up to Alaska, and down to Florida. And all in all, we drove about 30,000 miles in that year.
How many thousand?
30,000.
30,000.
Yeah, so as you can tell, there were no straight lines.
Yeah, yeah.
And during this trip, That's what opened your eyes to sustainable living and the idea
Further,
of
like we already, the purpose of the trip was to see what's out there in the realm of sustainability.
okay, you were
And
already interested in it.
yes, we already had the interest to see what exactly is happening out there, because there's only so far that you can go with reading about it in the books and on the web. Going out there, meeting people and touching things and hearing their stories, like no book or no web browsing experience can compare to that.
Did you pass through Taos?
Not on that trip. We have been to Taos and to the Earthship community on one of those week-long outings that we used to take.
Sweet.
So I'm curious, you know, the name of your organization is Greenspark, and you just explained to us like a high level of how you got into this. But I'm curious, like, you know, hence the green spark. What exactly was the spark that, you know, that tipped you off to sustainability? You mentioned you came across Mother Earth News, but I feel like there was motivation. There must have been motivation. Maybe it was living and feeling trapped in the city. Maybe it was something. Maybe it was, you know, being in an office all the time. You know, what was it that got
all of the above?
Yeah.
I guess at some point just a critical mass was reached. I can't even pinpoint any individual item that was the straw that broke the camel's back, but it was just there are certain experiences that I can pinpoint that made us take a step further. It was a very interesting moment in Key West, Florida, on one of those week-long trips that we took to go and explore all parts of the country little by little. In Key West, Florida, we ran across a gentleman who was just sitting on the sidewalk and making hats out of palm leaves and selling them. And just before that, we spent several days in the Everglades, and I remember coming out of my tent and discovering a coconut in front of it. I got my knife out of storage and tried to dig through the coconut, and it didn't go very far. So I ended up being able to drill through that coconut with a power drill. That was a good shortcut. But when I saw this guy sitting on the sidewalk, we approached him and asked him, so, okay, looks like you know your way with, and he did have a couple of coconuts with a big machete stuck in the coconut. So we got up to him and said, okay, so would you like to show us how to properly open it up? And he says, absolutely. Here, he took the coconut, the machete, one cut, second cut to make the little pointy top, and with the third cut, he just opened it up and says, easy. And at that point, we were totally fascinated. It was just professionalism at its highest. So we somehow, having lived in New York, it was our totally natural reaction to reach into the pocket and hand him a couple of dollars. Having seen people perform on the streets all the time with a little hat sitting next to you, and it was like just a part of life. Like having lived in a big city, like somebody on the street does something interested, you do something to appreciate it, which usually involves monetary signs of appreciation. And he was shocked. Like, he couldn't understand why am I handing him this dollar or two. He was just looking at me totally confused.
He's like, don't you want a hat? He's trying to sell you a hat, I imagine, right?
Not really. No. He didn't. It was just strange to him that I was giving him money for just showing him something. And that got us thinking, what else, like about the cultural differences between that you have kind of implanted on yourself by being in the city, voluntarily or not. And so this was just one of the multiple experiences that made us realize that I love New York. I still go back there all the time. We have lots and lots of friends and family, which is, you know, it happens when you live in one place for 16 years. But ultimately, we realized that there is more to life than New York. And it was just one of multiple experiences of that scale that kind of pushed us out of the comfort zone to go and see what's actually out there, how people live, what life is like. So that's the background story. And as far as an actual project itself, when we left on the trip, we didn't have an idea of, yes, let's see what happens out there and do something about it. Our idea was just to see it. And then as we were traveling, this idea somehow started to solidify and form in our heads that, wow, we've seen so much. There must be some cool way to share it with others.
So, okay, so that I'm curious, you know, maybe it's just your nature to, you know, to have the desire to share it with others, but it seems like you didn't actually, or maybe you did, you know, did you go and like, you know, create a sustainable lifestyle, like building like a sustainably minded home and create your lifestyle first before you created, you know, the attractions and the museum and stuff, or did you go straight to the museum?
Well, we did postpone the project by several years. We had a little daughter that joined us, and for the first few years, that was almost a full-time job within itself. So it was really not possible to focus on a project of that scale as a destination, as a travel destination. And also, we couldn't find a property or a location that would be a good match for this project. And then a couple of things happened at once. We found the right land, and our daughter was already big enough. And also, we got I ended up getting laid off from the job I held at the time here in Vermont. So all the things kind of clicked together.
So do you have, what's your like living situation like? Do you have, did you incorporate some of these ideas and technologies into your lifestyle and your home as well?
Yes, we ended up buying an old house from 1900 and we weatherized it. We did a lot of improvements on the heating systems, and if it was a new build, we would have a lot more liberty to do things. Given that it's not a historic house, but it's still fairly old, and there is a lot of very interesting architectural elements. So every time let's say I'm looking at my window right now, and I says, do I replace this window that's been here with this house from day one with delicate wood carvings, or to put a modern triple pane glass, or not? And it's not just a decision to yeah, but we definitely made a lot of like the biggest improvement. We weatherized the house, so our heating costs, and which is the biggest expense here in Vermont, our heating costs went down by 2/3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Our that was a very, very big deal, and driving a Prius was a big update. So we kind of phase things in as they become, as older items become antiquated or worn out. We slowly replace them with what's best for, like when we moved in, all the light bulbs were incandescent, so they got replaced with LEDs. So it's little by little. The next one is going to be the heating system. The house is still unfortunately heated with oil, and it's a huge project that we need to figure out.
Well, what would you replace it with?
Pellets. My plan, like the two options. If the house was an open floor architecture, I would definitely pursue the route of heat pumps. And the cold climate heat pumps are getting amazing, and their performances just they weren't able to accomplish what they do now, even as recently as 10 years ago. Now they are surprisingly effective to down to not negatives, but fairly low temperatures.
Wow, it's funny. Heat pumps are not something that I've been historically super familiar with, but I need to be, because I very well may be incorporating one of those into the house that I build one day. I know they're a huge component of the passive houses in a hermetically sealed house for air exchange and for temperature exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, the house that we live in it's 3 apartments, and we own it, but it's each of those apartments is really compartmentalized. So would it not be a heat pump would be a very easy solution, but right now the house is plumbed for hot water heat. So another option we've been looking into, and prices keep going down all the time on that, is pellet heat. Not a small one that produces heat directly, but a big one that sits in your basement with a 5-ton hopper, and you get centralized pellet delivery, where a huge truck pulls up, and they get a hose and they blow the pellets in. You know how they deliver oil with a hose? So same idea. Instead of oil, they bring a hose, then they blow air, and using the air, they blow pellets into your hopper.
How long does in a Vermont winter, how long will 5 tons last you?
Since when who knows? It's a very open-ended question. It depends on whether tight your house is, what temperature you keep at home, what type of pellets they are. So there is a gazillion of different variables that really make that impossible to answer without doing all the measurements.
Let me ask this real quick. How is it that costs are coming down so significantly?
On the stoves, not on the
stoves
pellets
themselves.
Are stable in price. I mean, the little paper, cellulose thing or wood shavings that they're compressing from. Yeah. But the technology itself, I've been looking into this for 2 years, and the price. The price didn't really drop, but the technology improves drastically, and the price also keeps slowly declining.
You mean in terms of efficiency? It's just extracting more BTUs per ton?
No, that's a good question. Maybe not. I'm not gonna claim that I know this, but what I do know is the overall reliability of the pellet stoves, the larger ones like this, is improving. And for example, the one I was looking at, I can't remember the brand. It's been a couple of year and a half since they do a real-time monitoring of your setup over the web with a gazillion of different sensors, and they can actually adjust things if something begins to happen, which affects the performance.
No
so
shit.
they can remotely they get alerts at their headquarters, and it's a company in Scandinavia.
Wow, I didn't know pellets were headed towards a singularity as well. Along with the rest of
I've never heard of the centralized pellet stove in the house. All the pellet stoves that I've ever come encounter with are literally like a wood-burning stove, and you have to bring a bag of pellets into your house, and you have to fill it up manually. There's no hopper, and then that runs for like 5 hours, and then you got to do it again. It's really interesting because so my business produces a tremendous quantity of sawdust, and I have considered it's not going to be cost effective on a small scale for us. But in the past, I've looked into getting a pelletizer for all the sawdust and then selling the pellets. So we didn't do that. But it's interesting. I've never thought about pellets because of the way I haven't heard of the system that you're talking about. And now that I know about that, it's
there are multiple. It's not just one brand. There are I know there are American brands, there are Scandinavian brands. So there is a range of what's available.
So there's this interesting different uses for the same raw material to produce heat. So for example, with sawdust, we can make pellets and we can burn them in a stove, like what we're talking about right now. But that same pile of sawdust that I have, like we just produced, we're in our milling season. We have a sawmill, right? And we're in our milling season. We're producing lumber. We just produced about 30 tons of sawdust in the last like 6 weeks. So we got this, I just moved this 30-ton pile of sawdust over to a big composting area that we have. We're composting the entire thing. And I am extremely interested in compost and generating heat that way. So I just took this 30-ton compost pile. We started digging into it. It had been sitting there for about 6 weeks and digging into it. And it was like about 15, 20 degrees outside, and took a couple scoops, nothing, took a couple more scoops. And literally it was like 130 degrees in there. It was heating up. It was getting to its like, I mean, potentially compost can get to like 180 or something, I think. And, my hands are freezing, so I stick them in the compost to heat them up real quick. And it's just this thing where it's like, all right, I can make this into pellets, or I can coil plastic pipe in the pile and run like a closed glycol loop. Yep. And do like radiant floors or connect to a hot water heating system in a house. So you got these two different ways to produce heat off the exact same raw material. And I'm just so curious how like these two will stack up with compared to one another. Like, what's the expended energy and environmental cost of producing the pellets and burning them versus the decomposition of the sawdust in a compost relative to the amount of BTUs you can suck out of those things. It's really interesting. That's kind of incredible that came up because it's just two very different ways you can derive the same BTUs out of the same raw material.
Yep.
Have you ever looked into compost at all?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. What you're describing is called something pile, a French name.
John Payne? Oh no, he probably coined the name, but he's a French guy that kind of coined the process.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe that's why it's a French name.
Yes, there was also a derivative idea of this, where you do the open composting of the leaves or wood or the sawdust in your basement, and you just release the heat in your basement and you allow it to naturally go up through the house.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta shovel all that out of your house in the spring.
That's crazy. Where have you heard about that?
The interwebs.
That's wild. I mean, so many things. I got like a bazillion questions that come to mind with that, but that's really interesting. Yeah, I could totally
not say that it doesn't come without its own complications.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So you're I got to tell you, man, you're a brave man, in my opinion, buying a house from, you said 19th century. So,
well, not 1900.
1900. So still, it's an old house. It's had like various renovations done on it. There's probably a lot of plaster all over the place.
Yeah, latent plaster. Almost no sheetrock.
Yeah, so I just say you're a brave man because I never.
It's been a learning process.
Yeah, I've never. By coincidence, I never bought an old house. I bought like a new house and then I built a house. So both these situations, it was very predictable. In the house that I built, the Earthship, I knew exactly what was going on inside this place. I could use all the modern techniques, and there was no surprises, and there will never be any surprises. And in the new house that I bought, it was similar. I've never had any surprises because it's a cookie cutter type of situation. Mm-hmm. And like I know where everything is and I know what to expect, but trying to retrofit like an old house to you know, you said you winterized it. You're gonna add the pellet stove and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there? I mean, pellet stove, I imagine, is
We
forced
didn't do
hot
the
air.
pellet stove, but it's on our to-do list. Not yet.
So the pellet stove is a possibility. I imagine a pellet stove is forced hot air. So are you going to have to run ducting through the house?
Negative. It produces. So actually, there is a company that makes a replacement. So if you think about big oil-fired furnace, there is a big space where your flame lives, and then there is a little attachment that's your they call it a gun, oil gun, flame gun, where the blower sits, and so it's the whole assembly with the igniter and the blower and the pump. So that whole thing comes off, and they put a new attachment to it, which effectively does wood gasification. So you familiar with wood gasification?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, so it gasifies wood, and then it burns that in your existing boiler. And as a result, it produces the same hot water that you circulate around your floors with your same circulator pumps. It allows you to retrofit pellets to your existing system.
Wait a minute. So we're not actually combusting the pellets per se. We are gasifying them. We're extracting the combustible gases from the pellets and then burning that gas in the existing boiler.
You got it.
That's clever. I like that.
Most of those large pellet stoves do that. Even from what I understand, even the little ones that sit in your living room corner, not all of them, but many of them do small-scale gasification.
You know, that makes sense, because those are the ones that I'm familiar with, that I've seen, and you know, they got a blower, and they're giving it constant oxygen, which is actually interesting. Maybe it's the other way around, because gasification, as I understand it,
so the air gets blown to where combustion happens, but not where pellets are heated up.
Okay, so even the small stoves, they are controlling. They're very much controlling the heat delivered to the pellets in order to.
I imagine that it's not all of them, but I definitely have seen several that do that.
Ah, so interesting. So I could understand. Sorry, if I'm going crazy on this. I'm just really interested in the process. I totally get why you would want to gasify the pellets in a boiler to retrofit it to work with an existing boiler. But in a small scale, what is the advantage to the gasification, gasifying the pellets versus just burning them?
From as far as I understand, you end up with better heat extraction from the biomass.
Huh. Okay. Fair enough. So interesting. I have to look more into pellets now.
The downside of the whole system, which concerns me, is you need to go in and get the ash out. There is still some amount of ash that's produced, so it's as good as it depends heavily on the quality of the pellets. Hardwood ones are better than softwood ones, but regardless of that, you still need to go in periodically, turn the system off, and clean out the area underneath where all the ash is stored.
Hey, if you can blow the pellets in, maybe you can blow the ash out.
Funny you say that. They have a system where right next to the pellet stove in your basement, you have a small air compressor, which periodically before every firing opens a little electronically control. So there is a controller board that opens that makes sure that there is no ignition happening. It opens compressed air, allows it to blow all the ashes away from the bottom of the combustion chamber into the underlying storage chamber. And after that, combustion starts over. So every firing cycle starts with no ashes on the bottom of the combustion chamber.
So now you have this ash storage chamber where if you had if you could retrofit it, you can modify it to have compressed air blow in and have like a blower pulling it all out, blowing it outside or something.
Yeah, to your neighbor's yard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just get it out of sight.
Yeah, that's the very last step. Nobody offers any automation in that.
But you seem like a guy that could put something together.
Uh, Interesting idea, but they all come with warranty. And when you have, by the way, Paul, your picture's frozen.
It is?
Oh, not anymore.
No, he was just super still.
I was just sitting still.
Okay. Yeah, so they all say that you need to go in, press a pause button, and take out the garbage.
Okay. Yeah, I totally could understand.
My biggest concern, because sometimes we like to live in the winter for a month to go someplace warm.
Right.
And that is a limiting factor. Like the necessity, necessity to have that cleaned out periodically is one of the reasons that there is a way we can find somebody who would do that, but it's an extra step that needs to be happen.
I got you.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the. Actually, here, Paul, if there's anything you want to cut in with here, this would be a great time.
Oh, I've got a lot of questions. One segue off of that is, it occurs to me that this endeavor, this whole thing of homesteading and getting deep into the whole sustainability thing, appeals to computery dudes a lot. Like a
Seriously?
lot of,
You've seen that more than once?
oh my god, it's all the goddamn time. And then there's that guy, the Real Martian, who just launched his channel in association with Wrangler Star, and he's setting up this whole off-grid mega greenhouse aquaponics thing, and he's got all Arduinos that he's programming himself and Android apps and stuff to
Didn't you just answer a question?
Huh?
Didn't you just answer your question?
What do you mean? I didn't even ask.
The computer guys. Because it just allows you to keep playing with more gadgets in a new space. Just implement what you know on something you believe in.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting segue to go from programming to like applied. I mean, I don't even know what I would call it. Applied systems, like sustainable. I don't know. It's just an interest. Yeah, it's an interesting. You're right. That's why it appeals. It's a lot of like rational deconstruction of systems and stuff like that in the real world.
You use the same systemic approach to you just solve different problems.
What is your background in coding? Like what?
And I didn't do coding. I did network architecture, network design, and network security.
Okay.
Is that something you're still doing now? It is?
Not since I went full-time about a year ago. So I've been working on Greenspark full-time since December 2015 or so, January 2016.
Wow. Full-time. What does your day look like, your average day? I mean, or combine a few different days.
Well, the mornings are often spent with my daughter, but I do after that work later at night. So really there is very little pattern. Sometimes there are appointments with permitting stage was very stressful because we didn't know if you can't invest any money into the project until you know that permits have been granted. So that was so while the permitting were happening, days were more like filled up with appointments with engineers and state people and town people. So once that happened, I was shocked with how much work is actually happening on the computer versus out in the field with a shovel.
Right.
But yeah, it's I still do a lot of IT work, but it's the kind of work that it's web design and
Freelance.
Photoshop and Adobe Premiere editing for some video clips, and then finding, like, keeping in, like, every morning I spend probably an hour digging through various boards and forums to see if something comes up, because there is a number of things that I'm looking to purchase, and one of them being a wood gasified vehicle.
Oh my god.
There are several, like, they do come up for sale occasionally. All of them are home builds, but so far everything I've seen is pickup trucks, and it kind of makes sense. You have a lot of room in the back for the whole setup, and you can haul all of your pellets along for the ride. Not pellets, but wood chips or what have you.
Are those gasifiers generally based off that FEMA guide to gasification?
No, the FEMA is not a very good one from what I hear, and it's secondhand information. But from what I have heard, the biggest problem with the FEMA design is that the gas it produces has a very high amount of tar in it. So it really does a job on your valves in your internal combustion engine.
Gotcha.
Hey, Alex. So I'm going back to the beginning here, just because I want to get a more complete picture of your project. Can you tell us what for someone who's never heard of Greenspark, what is its mission, and then can you kind of give us a tour of the property, and maybe you could even edit when this is all said and done. Maybe we could edit over some images.
Oh, totally.
So walk us around the property. First, talk to me why you guys are doing this. Like what is the purpose of it, and then what can a visitor in 2020 expect to see? Or now and then.
And hopefully 2017. Hopefully, that's the plan. So first of all, the mission is to inspire people and to inform them of what's out there in the interactive, creative way. And there are many people who are just totally unaware of a lot of the interesting technologies that are immediately available today, whether for DIY or even in retail markets. And many people, I have seen people who were totally unaware of all of that realm of technology even being out there. So the idea is to show what's there and to inspire. And the place would look like this. You come in, you park your car, you come through the visitor center, and then you go out in the field, and there will be several areas. First, you're going to arrive to the section with sustainable transportation, where you will have everything with wheels or related to wheels. So far we already have procured 3 exhibits out of about 6 or 7 that we want to have for the opening day. So we have something called commuter car, and it's until the modern electric cars like a Nissan Leaf and Tesla came about, this was the most mass-produced modern electric car. Those were made in Florida in the late 70s, early 80s, and it's a 2-seater coupe with a 40-mile range, and they made about, I think, 3,500 or 4,000 of them. And they were made under 2 names, as city car or commuter car. So I already have one of those. Then a second thing that we already got is an ELF, ELF. It's an electric tricycle with 2 wheels in the front, 1 in the back, and a hub motor and the mid-train gearbox. You can pedal that, and there is a roof, there is a windshield, there is a plastic windshield, plastic transparent cover in the back, storage space behind you, and the roof is the flexible solar panel, so you can it charges anytime there is any sunlight outside.
No shit.
Yes, so that's such an exciting ride. Anytime I get in, I just can't get that smile off my face. You just go. Yeah.
So the solar panel's enough with light pedaling to sustainably keep going for an indefinite
time? Not indefinitely. The solar panels recharge your battery once you arrive. Let's say you go 10 miles, you get to work at 9 o'clock. You leave it outside until 5, and by 5, depending on the day and climate and where you are, there is a chance that it might refuel the battery.
Okay, cool.
Like, yeah, so the newer ones have bigger batteries. So I have an older, the one I bought is an older model, which doesn't matter for showing it. But if you were to go and purchase a brand new one today, they have a very capable panels that pretty much top off your battery by 5 o'clock.
Okay,
very
so
cool.
keep us going through the property.
Yeah, so then we'll have a biodiesel setup where you can actually see, you're not going to see biodiesel being produced for safety reasons, but it will be a setup that is a true life-like unit that technically could be used should the need arise. And also, other exhibits for the transportation section that we still do not have are the wood gasifier car and the compressed air powered vehicle. It's a company called MDI, and they have a location. They have location in the US called Zero Pollution Motors, but they're working on building a plant, I think, in Hawaii, but they may have changed plans. I'm not certain. But it turned out that one of the founders of the company lives in Vermont, so we are hoping to be able to showcase a compressed air powered vehicle.
Alex, can I actually ask you something about that thing? So my familiarity mostly with compressed air is, small air compressors while working on a home, or a big one like we have a 100-gallon compressed air compressor at our shop, at our wood shop.
Right.
I'm curious. Do you know what the size of this tank is, and how long it has to run to compress the tank to go? Because it says on your website here over 120 miles. I'm so curious.
That's one of the I know they're undergoing a redesign, so I don't know what the second generation will be like, but I understand that that vehicle it's compact, and I'm not exactly sure where the tanks are. I don't know, maybe in the under the frame, or maybe they are part of the frame, where Tesla has their batteries.
Wow, it's so interesting. I'm going to have to look into that one. But please go on.
And as far as refilling the tanks, it depends on the compressor. From what I understand, they have an onboard compressor, so you can just plug your car to the electric outlet, and it will just take the ambient air and pump it into the tanks. Or you can go up to the stationary compressor and not rely on a teeny little pump that's on board, and that will fill you up in a matter of minutes.
Oh yeah, forget about it. I'm just imagining this thing driving down the street, just going. Hilarious, like a balloon flying down the street.
Yeah. And I understand they're doing a lot of interesting work with, when you release,
Paul.
Hopefully more controlled.
Yeah.
It's got a little balloon mouth flapping for an exhaust pipe.
Yeah, it just sounds like. Wow, that's I got to look more at technology. That is, I'm looking
And
at it
you know
right
how
now.
when you let the compressed air out in the open, you change the pressure and you end up with air with the temperature dropping. Like that's so they are looking to salvage that into producing into air conditioning.
Oh my God, that's perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
And it solves a problem of preventing engine freezes
Oh
because
my gosh, right off the bat, I'm thinking like you could have like a radiator that's just piping for your compressed air system and have a fan blowing through it, and it will because the air is cold from the compressor. It'll literally just blow it. You can blow AC into your cabin. That's awesome.
Yep.
Amazing.
So anytime you start to dig into the technology like this, you discover all sorts of unusual uses. So that's really exciting.
So cool.
And we also, another exhibit that we already have as well that I didn't mention yet for the transportation section is it's a bicycle with a flywheel. So when, you pedal it just like a regular bike, but when you want to slow down, instead of losing your movement to the friction of your brakes, you speed up a big flywheel that's mounted within a frame. Like in the plane of the frame.
You're like the green Willy Wonka over here. You can have every bizarro idea. It's awesome.
I mean, they're all like bizarro, but they're also like they're very real, you know.
Brilliant,
but,
yeah.
And it just because it's funny, Paul, because when he was describing that bicycle, I thought the same thing. I thought like Willy Wonka, like Alice in Wonderland, you know, something like really like fantastic looking. But you know, I'm looking at some of these compressed air cars. It doesn't have to be. You know, I'm sure like all this technology can fit into a form factor with some ingenuity, where it wouldn't look funny or strange at all. Like it doesn't have to be like a giant flywheel. You know what I mean?
So it's not one of those bikes with one giant wheel and then a little wheel in the back from like the 1800s.
No,
I'm joking.
This build was mentioned on NPR and Scientific American. So for that matter, the Science Friday made a whole film about it. So it's not. It is not a joke. It's totally awesome.
It sounds brilliant. I mean, who knew that you could incorporate such a high technology? I guess it's not that complex. I mean, it's a simple concept, but into a manual bike.
Flywheels have been around for, you know, since like, I don't know, at least 100 years or more, you know, since the early industry.
And somehow you're able to engage off of that, like lock back in and start sapping that momentum off that flywheel to
it helps you it helps you take off. Like basically, it's not very different from what Priuses do. Like when you slow down, you don't lose your energy. You just store it as electricity, and then you reclaim it as you accelerate.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so maybe if a Prius, it spins up like some type of flywheel, and that flywheel is like running an alternator or running a generator charging the batteries, something to that effect, right?
No, in the Prius, it's all the energy is stored as electricity.
Oh, okay. So it's just spinning something and immediately converting it into electricity.
Yeah. So in the Prius, when you slow down, you spin a generator that charges your batteries.
Okay. Yeah. No flywheel. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be necessary. Sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, I have nothing to say. I'm
not so that's the transportation section, and there will be more exhibits. Like I said, a gasifier vehicle would be there, and we also entertain a hope that we might be able to find an EV van. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, the GM from the 90s.
GM, yes, some of them have survived, and there is a possibility that we might be able to convince some university to let us borrow theirs if they're not doing anything with it.
Wow, so it's turning into a sustainability history museum to a certain degree.
It's not history. It's not. It also shows we'll have a fuel cell exhibits as well. Mm-hmm. So it's history is just a part of it.
Right.
It just shows how we got where we are and what's available for moving forward.
Alex, I think the green building exhibits are probably going to be much more people viewing our channel are probably going to be much more inclined to know more about those things like straw bale and cordwood and adobe bricks, maybe tires, things like that. Can you just give us a little bit of a? Can you just run us through the technologies that you're going to be exhibiting on those?
Yeah, most definitely. So as you continue, you will arrive to the second exhibit, which is the Green Building Village. And we already built two exhibits. One of them is a cordwood exhibit. And the second that we built is a straw-bale exhibit. So these two are already there. And interestingly enough, the folks we bought this property from, just land, started building an Earthship on it.
No shit.
Yeah, so there is nothing but a little kind of a space dug into this hillside that's lined with a half, like, I don't know, 4-foot tall tire wall in the horseshoe shape. And it's definitely been out there for a while. There is a lot of grass.
It's called a U, Alex.
What is it?
It's called a U.
The U.
Yeah,
Horseshoe,
that's just
the
the slang.
looks like letter U. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a great start right there. You got your excavation done. You got 4 courses of tires. You're well on your way, man.
Yep. Problem is, it's in the wrong place.
Oh, is it not facing south?
No, it's in the woods. It's not where all the exhibits are going to be.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to use that as a kind of mystery exhibit?
We'll use a front loader to move all the tires to the new location. So we don't need to rent them.
Say the last thing. I was talking when you said that. Say that last part. You're gonna move them.
We will try to move those tires to the new location with the front loader.
Dan, any commentary?
Yeah, I'm curious. Are you gonna try to move them intact, like already pounded, and not have to repound them full of dirt, or are you gonna?
We'll find out as we go along.
Okay, right on.
You'll have to tune them back up.
There is one way to find out.
The
idea is to have a piece of plywood or metal to push them onto, so nothing would fall out of them.
Okay, that's
They should have cardboard in the bottom as it is. If they were right.
That cardboard might be gone by now.
Yeah, it's gone. There are little they're not trees, but there are some perennials already growing on that wall.
You know what, Alex? When you do that, you have to document that. I don't think I've heard of anybody ever trying to move a firewall. It's just like it's something like I don't know that anybody I've ever worked with in the airship world has even thought about doing that. So that is a very interesting topic, and you gotta let us know how well or poorly that goes, please.
Yeah, and we'll see. Another thought was just to use an ATV to pull each tire off the wall, so one at a time. So we always work with the top row, and just use a tow strap as a loop, and just throw it over the tire, pull it down to let it slide on a piece of plywood, and then drag that plywood.
Huh.
And then use a machine, have some heavy machinery to lift that tire and put it in place on the new wall, reconstruct the new wall.
Yeah.
At bare minimum, these tires are going to become all, they're going to lose their level. So you're going to have to tune them all up again. Like, you're going to have to get in there and so I'm wondering, my intuition tells me that, not that
I don't know if it's a good idea myself.
Yeah,
but if I try it, it's useless to me where it is.
Yeah.
Alex is a frontiersman. He's gonna find out. He's gonna find out the.
And for that matter, I actually want that part of the forest to go and be more pristine than it is right now. So they left people left a lot of building materials there under the tarps, and it's pretty much in the middle of the woods. So I want to clean that up. So if it doesn't work, at the worst, we just got all the tires out of the forest.
Worst case scenario, yeah, you clean up your site and then you just you could empty those tires and repound them in the new area. You know, that's no big deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we already have straw-bale and cordwood exhibits in place. And we are looking to add absolute minimalistic cross section of the Earthship. It's not gonna be an Earthship. It will be just a cross section of one, where it will be one panel of glass, a roof, and a side wall, and a little planter under the front glass, and some info panels inside. So really it will be just a small open space with just one wall and one side glass panel.
How many building exhibits ultimately would there be, or is it kind of infinite?
For opening day, we are planning 7.
Wow.
So we'll have straw-bale cordwood, Earthship, Adobe, papercrete, and SIP panels.
And you're building all of this?
No, we work with local builders, and some of those we've done as workshops. Some of those we build as workshops where people come in to learn the certain building method, and we end up with an exhibit.
Wow. It must be difficult finding the right people to come and help you build these alternative things.
It's been a learning process.
Yeah. Well, you're in the right area for it. I mean, near Burlington. I mean, it's chock full of hippies up there. So
I think you also have Yestermorrow not too far away, right?
Yeah, they are not too far away. You're right.
Well, Alex, so we've covered the whole kind of we've got a sample of this whole property, right?
And a third section is renewable energy. Let me just talk quickly about that. So we'll have exhibits that have one kind of connection or another to energy generation, storage, or usage. So so we'll have things like a Fresnel lens that will focus on a Stirling motor. We'll have things like a pair of solar panels with emitters connected to them, and you can shade one, and you see that you only shaded 5 or 10% of the panel, but you lost 60-70% of your output. So, and then you put a little you put a mirror to reflect extra light on the panel, and your output just went up again. So then we'll have a couple of different wind turbines where you can compare the output of those turbines in the same amount of wind, and then we'll have a pole with I forgot the name of this device, a little thing that measures the speed of wind, and it will sit on. There will be multiple of these sitting at different heights, so you can see all the readings down below, which helps you understand why is it important to put your wind turbines higher up. And then we'll have solar tubes also there as a part of that exhibit. With a light meter and a couple of light bulbs, so you can flip a different output light bulbs on to see which one of them compares to the amount of light you get through the solar tube.
Wow!
You know, the ideas you have here to illustrate how these things work and how they're efficient are really clever, because in building my house, I did get some of these experiences like you're telling me about, like things that I wasn't necessarily expecting, and I kind of the examples became obvious about efficiency and how much light are hitting solar panels and things like that as I was just watching how much power they're generating and things like that. But instead of just showing people how you set them up and how they work, showing people what a difference, for example, when you reflect some more light with a mirror onto the panel, and people then truly get this really rich experience to understand how to get the most out of them as well. It's an interesting example that the examples that you're coming up with are just, I think
it's not necessarily something you would end up doing, but at least understanding the whole nature of how it functions, it makes you just makes it so much more relevant.
Yeah, the fact that it's on small scale, you can manipulate it in real time, and you can see those results in real time. Yep. That's a really powerful exhibit. That's really going to teach people and give them a deep understanding. That's brilliant. Well done.
Thank you.
It's a truly audacious project, Alex. You're talking about this could be a real hit.
You know, Paul, it's funny you mentioned Disneyland, because Epcot Center in Disney World was actually, the original intent of it was to be an expose of efficient, sustainable lifestyle and home technology and things.
It's something went wrong as they started to implement it.
What's that again?
I think they had a little hiccup in the implementation stage.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not what they built.
Well, originally that was the intent.
That's
Epcot,
cool. I didn't know that.
Epcot, the acronym actually. So it's in fact, the Epcot is an acronym that stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
What?
Seriously?
Yeah.
So all the people who went there for
it was meant to be a utopian city of the future, and it was planned by Walt Disney. So people go there, and I don't know if you guys have ever been there. I've been to Epcot several times, actually.
Once, yes.
And pretty recently. And yeah, you know, what Epcot is now is a lot of, like, you go around the world and you see different cultures, but that kind of ties into it too, because it's all about community and city and stuff, living of tomorrow. And when you go into the Dome and a few of the other exhibits, it's all about technology and futuristic stuff. And the Dome is, I think it's or not the Dome, the Sphere is a little theatrical, like automaton, like, you know, robotic, like, little showing of technology, domestic technology, and how, like, technology is going to help people live. So it's you know, I think that the intent is still there. I don't know how it morphed over time, but it's funny. It is actually very much in the same idea as of what you're doing. In fact, I think they talk about the electric car there as well. So, you know, not a new idea, but you've definitely brought it to a new level, and you've definitely brought it up to date with popular culture and what's happening now. So it's great. Fantastic.
So the question is, Alex, are you going to have a geodesic dome that's painted silver?
We may have to consider a different color.
Yeah, okay.
Rename your project Epcot Resurrected or something. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Okay, do you want to give us, you know, how can people connect to you and talk about your Kickstarter and this, that, and the other? Anything you want to say to wrap up?
So the easiest way to get in touch is through our website. It's greensparkvt.com, and the email is there on the bottom of the page. The Greenspark is planning a Kickstarter. We already finished making a video, and right now we are actively working on preparing the support audience to help us promote the project once we go live. So yeah, check us out, and we have a newsletter on the website, and there is a Facebook presence as well, by the way. It's a 21st century after all. It's facebook.com/greensparkvt, so same as the domain name, but without com on Facebook. So you can like our page, and you can just send a message to the page on the Facebook, and I respond to that fairly quickly. And all that, or email, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions. if anyone wants to get involved, we definitely can use all the help we can get with the project, with the Kickstarter, with the builds. So.
When is the grand opening?
A futile hope is to go for the Earth Day, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. So maybe midsummer, April 22nd. But I don't know if that will happen. I have that as a soft deadline, and if we miss deadline, it will get pushed down a couple of months. But as of right now, we have a lot of exhibits that I've been building through the fall, and they're sitting in my basement. So once the trails are completed, and the trails can be built with an excavator over a weekend. So once all the trails are there, it's just a matter of bringing all the exhibits out there and placing them in the field.
Wowzers. Dan, you got anything? I know you got to run. I've got to go ahead. Dan, you got anything you want to?
No, I'm good on questions here. I do need to go, but so maybe I should wrap up if you guys want to keep going for a few more minutes, or we should wrap up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask Alex. I got two last questions. Where'd you grow up, and why Vermont?
Yeah, so grew up in the Ukraine, and after that in Brooklyn. So it's kind of between the two places.
Mm-hmm. When did you come over?
In 94.
94. So you were just a kid.
Yeah.
How old were you?
37 or 8.
You were 7 or 8.
No, you mean right? How old was I then or now?
When you came over.
15.
15. Wow. And why Vermont of all the places you could have done this?
Well, that was at the tail end of our year-long trip. So by the end of that trip, we already had a fairly good idea of what we like and what we don't like, where we want to be. So we were looking for a place in the driving distance of New York City, where all of our friends and family are. Okay. So we were looking at Vermont. We were looking at Ithaca, New York.
So you guys still have a lot of family in New York?
Yeah, pretty much everybody is there.
Okay. And so this passion and this interest is driven by both of you guys. It's something that you're both very interested in, or is it more correct. One or the other driving it?
No. It's definitely an undertaking that we both did.
Wow. And did you always have this interest, or was it something that you discovered later in life?
No, we kind of grew into that together.
Fairly recent, in the last few years.
Last 10 years.
Last 10 years. So when is your launch for the Kickstarter campaign?
We are thinking of realistically early February.
Early February. Okay, so I'll try to coordinate this with that. Keep me in the loop.
It might. We'll see if it gets delayed or not. Like right now, our main limiting factor is building up an audience that's big enough to help spread the word once we go live.
Yeah.
Yeah. So depends on how fast this progresses.
Thanks so much, bud.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun, yeah. And yeah. I think we could keep, now that we've kind of got our momentum, we could do it again in the future, and it's never going to end. I mean, the amount of intrigue and development is infinite.
Yeah, the idea is to just keep adding things. So what I described is just the base, is what we're hoping to open our doors with. But once we already have the process going, the idea is just to keep adding things.
Yeah.